Hi everybody, it's Benetta here from Your Anxious Teen, and today we're going to talk about a subject which is close to my heart, which is, I've named it actually, you said what? You said what? Because the words that we choose and the tonality that we use and our body language says so much to our children, right? So here we are on a Wednesday morning here in Melbourne, Australia. So if you're coming to me from somewhere else, I'd love to see where you're all coming from. So if you would put a comment and tell me where you're watching from so that I can see where my audience are, because I love to have an audience all over the world, of course. Anyway, let's get to today's subject, and that is what you say and how you say it. So what made me come up with this subject really was because before I knew about the subconscious mind, before I knew about how words really resonate with the subconscious mind, I didn't have a clue. So when my son became anxious and then fell into this depression, I really didn't know how to deal with it in a positive way with my body language or the words that I was using. The more that I know about the subconscious, the more that I can see how that was detrimental rather than helping him. So if you have a problem with your teen, which you probably are watching because you are, or if you know somebody who could really do with knowing these things, because I've had so many people say to me afterwards, you know what, if I'd have only known that, if I'd have only known that when my children were growing up or when my teens were giving me trouble, it would have been so helpful. So if there's anyone you know who you think that this could help, why don't you bring them on live right now? Otherwise, you can share this afterwards and they can watch it as a replay. But if you put in the comments replay, then I'll also know how many of my audience can watch at this time of the morning in Melbourne and how many of you are sleeping, because obviously our audience in the UK will be just getting ready for bed and our audience in America the same. So if you could just let me know where you're coming from, it would be very helpful. So let's get on with today's subject, shall we? What we say. So the words that we say, and you know what? When my son was having this anxious time, I looked everywhere to find out how I could help him. I really researched so many places. And the only thing that I could find about depression, anxiety was what not to say. But it didn't give me any indication as to what to say instead or how the victim triangle would appear for us, how would we become codependent on each other. And it's so crazy, isn't it, that we don't know these things, because unless you've dealt with it yourself or unless you've dealt with it before, there's nowhere to really tell you how to deal with this in a better way. So hopefully today I'll give you some great tips on how to do that. Firstly, it's what not to say. It's so easy to say things like you should, or you have to, or trying to sort of, I suppose, encourage by saying things like, you're disappointing me. When it comes from a parent, it's so hard because we're going through our own motions of acceptance, going through the motions of, where is my wonderful child gone? Where's that person who used to always be happy and go lucky and socializing with other people without a problem? And then all of a sudden, they're changed. It's almost as if that person doesn't exist anymore. And that's so hard to then come to terms with that as a parent. It may be that your child is hiding away in their room. And so to try and help them to socialize, you might say, okay, let's invite some people over. But that's overwhelming for someone who's in this social anxiety. So I would encourage you to look at what your teen needs and to ask them, how can I help? It's also really hard for us to be calm in those situations because frustration comes in, and if we're not diligent with ourselves, with how we're feeling, then anger can take over. Oh, hi, Adair. It's lovely to see that someone who is so far away is actually looking in and finding out these things. I hope this is helpful for you. So let's think about some of the words that we could use instead of you should. Because who says that they should? Who says that they need to? And they will not see it if they're in a state of depression. So be gentle and compassionate, but also try and work out some sort of compromise, right? Because what we would do in the situation, or what we think we would do, is not what they want to do or what they consider is a step in the right direction, okay? I know that my husband is very much old school and would always just say, right, just get on with it, just do it. But when you're in that state, it's hard to just do anything, right? It's hard to even put a foot forward in some depression, right? Some states of depression. If we can catch this early enough, if we can see it coming, then it's much easier to deal with, right? If we can see that they're having trouble with their friends at school, then let's step in and give them some advice, but not from a judgmental point of view. Maybe a story, maybe something that you've heard that may help. And say to them, what do you think the problem is? Because the more we give them power to work out a solution for themselves and to work out what the problem really is, then the easier it is for us to help them to move forward. Yes, Adair, you're right. It says that all she wants is for them to be happy and doing what they love. It's quite easy for us to push hard when we want our teens to do something. For instance, just holding down a job sometimes is hard work for them when they're in this state. So what about some online learning? What about something that they really like? So if we could choose something like, say, gaming, because a lot of young boys like to be alone on a device whereby they can do some gaming. So what about if we encourage them to do some gaming that's online with other people? Something that you need to interact with other people. Because then it's not as scary, is it? If they're actually interacting across, a game that they like, or if they're interacting on a phone, interacting in, a Facebook group, something like this, because that isn't confrontational. So it is taking one step forward. So one step forward. Yeah, the only thing is, as you say, Adair, that they may get stuck in that virtual world. And just to encourage them even to come out and have dinner with everybody, with their family, to talk about even the gaming that they're doing. Or I know that there's a game called Pokemon Go, which you can go to different areas and battle and meet people who are there and battle together to obtain the Pokemon that you want. And I know this because I actually did it with my son. We actually did it for quite some time, where when I wasn't busy, I would take him to a park. We might drive there or we might walk there, and we would actually be in a field with people or be in a park with people. And at first he wouldn't talk to them, but then I encouraged that by saying, hey, what are you here for today? You know, what have you got? What have you caught? And then he would get involved because he felt like he had something to say. And a lot of the time with social anxiety, it's because they feel that they have nothing to contribute, nothing to say that's of importance, right? So if we can make them feel important, excuse me, in whichever way we can, then that's a move in the right direction, right? What I say to you as a parent is to be aware of how much you're pushing them, to be aware of how much you feel like you're saying the right thing rather than saying the right thing. So let's have a look at those words that we can use instead of should or have to. Is like, imagine what it would be like. Imagine is a great word. We use it all the time in hypnosis, of course, because imagery is a huge part of what we do. So imagine how it would feel to be out there talking about your work or talking about your passion or meeting people who have the same passion as you. Because that really is a way to start the brain engaging with what they want. Imagine what it would be like. What about could you? Do you think that you could try that? Because I think it would be beneficial. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Because what they think is often the problem, isn't it? What they're thinking. So if we can guide them as to what to think. Yeah. What about the phrase, how would that make you feel? How would that make you feel? And we use this again in hypnosis all the time because it's the feeling behind what we're doing, the emotion behind it that propels us or stops us from doing something. So if we find out how that would make them feel, we can then work on, if it makes you feel good, let's do more of it. If it makes you feel bad, why does it make you feel bad? What is it about that that scares you or makes you feel bad? It's often also the way that we talk, okay? So some of those words I've got written down here. So if you'd like a copy of my notes, which tell you so much more, obviously, than I can tell you right now, then please put in the comments that you'd like a copy, or even just ask me a question, and we will actually be able to send you the notes from today. It's the tonality as well, because sometimes it's not what we're saying, it's how we're saying it. And this often comes from childhood. If in childhood they've had someone who screams or shouts or raises their voice or argues all the time, whether that was you or someone else, it will be sticking in their mind. I say in my notes that, you know what, I could write a book about this subject, just on this alone. It's the subject of what we say and how we say it, because if you're listening, oh, hi, Debbie. It's lovely to see you. Where are you from? I'd love to know. I think that, you know, the thing about how we say stuff, when I hear people say that it was a teacher who said something to them that put them down and made them think that they weren't good enough, that they had nothing to offer. It really breaks my heart, because teachers are all there for all the right reasons, right? It's just like nurses or hypnotherapists. Hi, Debbie, you're in Adelaide. Lovely to see you. So you're out of lockdown too. I'm so pleased. I'm so happy that we're out of lockdown, even if it's just a small amount. Happy as, right? So yeah, it's just that thing of it could be someone else, either in your family or a teacher, who are there to encourage, but they just don't know how. They just don't know how. And it could be that this has started a cycle. I had a young girl who came to me and she said, I can't do anything. I want to live independently and I want to go to TAFE and I want to do something with my life, but I'm stuck doing a job that I hate. I'm just in Coles, serving people all day. It's boring. And I'm living with my parents still, and I just don't see a way out. And I said, what makes you think that you can't go to TAFE? And she said, my teacher said you'll never make anything of yourself because you're lazy and dumb. Oh, oh my goodness. And, you know, it may have been that they hadn't done their homework or that they didn't understand the subject. But to say those words that cut her so deep that she just didn't see a point of even trying to do anything for herself. So teaching her how to be someone new, you know, the person she is inside, rather than the person that she was made out to be by a teacher who didn't even realize what they were saying. So, yes, so often it's not even you. And I know, excuse me, that when I started to learn about the subconscious mind and how it absorbs these things, and not only the words, but the tonality and the body language, I tried to teach my husband, but it was useless. It was useless trying to teach him the new ways because he hadn't done any of this learning. And so I had to try and work my way through it, right? And reiterate to my son that that's not what dad means. You realize that he comes from an old school teaching whereby you just get up and you do it and that's it. So it was, I suppose, pouring water on the fire. So when the fire would start, just had to pour the water on. Oh, hi, how are you, Cherie? And I would love to give you a copy of my notes. And if I can help you guys, oh, hi, Sue, too. If you could, you know, these things are so important. So if we can just help each other, I've been through it, right? I've been there. I've said to myself, why? Why did I say those things? But I know that I didn't know any better. So if I can help any one of you, I'm so happy to do that. So let's talk now about body language, okay? Body language. What gets your goat with your teens and their body language? Mine is rolling the eyes, right? Every time that I try to encourage them, it's the rolling of the eyes. And I realize that really it's not about me. It's about them. And if they're rolling their eyes, at least they're listening to me. They're not running away and they're not trying to fight me. They're just trying to absorb what I'm saying. And they might not like what I'm saying, right? Because our teens quite often don't like what we're saying to them. But it's something that maybe needs to be said. But if you want to look back on some of my other teachings on these subjects, like the drama triangle, then please just ask and we can drop you those notes too. So there's lots and lots of teaching here and learnings from me, because when you're asking questions, then of course I'm going to try and answer. Let me have a look at Cherie. Oh yeah, I get you, Cherie. It's this thing about school, right? If you're, I suppose, even if you're living in a different country other than Australia, which we're all in Australia, I think, it's that thing of stopping and starting, stopping and starting. And our children just don't know where they're at. They have no idea. Are they going to be stopped from playing football after school? Are they going to be stopped from seeing their mates? Are they going to do online learning again? And it might be difficult for them, right? Because not everyone has the perfect situation at home for online learning. I know that in my house, we have 2 dogs. We don't have small children, so it's not too difficult. But if you've got small children and older children, and if you've got pets, or if you've got a job that you have to go to and you can't be at home with them, it's terrible. Excuse me. And I know that so many people are struggling with this problem of teaching and being able to be at home with them. Just know that this isn't going to last forever. And I know that a lot of children really still like structure, right? They still really like structure, and trying to give them some structure at home, just like when they're at school. Yeah, I know. So it's terrible, right? It's that thing of, what do I do with them? How do I deal with this? What I can say to you is, the more that we are calm, and this goes with the body language too, the more that we can take a few breaths and just allow ourselves to calm down before we speak. And knowing that the more we raise our voice, the less they listen, right? The more that we try to get ourselves heard by raising our voice and getting angry, the less they will listen. So my advice to you is, just allow yourself to calm. And if you would like my 20-minute calming download, so that you can just listen to this voice of reason and to really allow yourself to take time out, because we have to look after ourselves, right? The time that we lose it the most is when we are in this state of chaos ourselves. Too many things to take on board, too many things we're trying to do at the same time, not enough sleep, not resting ourselves. So if we can rest ourselves, if we can take a little bit of calm out of the chaos, then we can really deal with things in a better way. And this for me was a huge learning, is that the more I look after myself, the more calm I am, the more that I go in with this attitude of, I'm just going to say what I need to say in a more positive way, in an encouraging way, then I probably am going to get a better result. Because the results that I got by doing that were outweighed tenfold, 100-fold what I was doing before. We were having arguments every single day. It was just like trying to, I don't know, push this heavy load, and the heavy load was on my back. The heavy load was on my back because I was taking on everybody's problems. I was taking off on everyone's. Thank you so much, Debbie. It's lovely to see that you're here. So yeah, if you're taking on this heavy load, and you might even be taking on the load of elderly parents or of work, like your own work, financial stress, all those things will weigh heavily upon your shoulders. Single parents, we did a single parents and divorcees from last week. If you're a single parent, those loads are heavier and heavier. So I would really, really like to help you to start to unload those things. I do have a very short online course about finding the calm from chaos. So if you would like to know anything about that, please also let me know, because it would just help you to download and let go of the heavy load. So just to reiterate what I was saying before is really to think about how you deal with your teen, how you deal with them. So I would say to you, relax, look after yourself, try and find that calm inside, and then try and get them to tell you what they would like you to do. How can you help? Encourage them to be outside, to meet other people, even if it's online, to eat with you as a family, so that you can just, I suppose, share the load. Share the load. And if you want to share the load, excuse me, with me, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to give you any help that you need, and try and find a solution for this problem that we seem to have, particularly through this COVID time, because it has, put the cat among the pigeons, it really has been a bit of a challenge for everybody. So if we can help each other, if we can share the load, I'm happy to do that. And I'm sure there's many more people out there who can also do that too. So yes, please keep in touch. If you like what I've written on the notes, let me know, please. I'd love some feedback. If you'd like something more to be talked about, if there's something that's on your mind that I can talk about and give you any knowledge I have, please just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to say goodbye for this morning, and I'll see you next week. And it's lovely to see some people here asking questions. So just take a breath, everybody. If you're like me and you're in Melbourne or in Adelaide or in any of those places that we're out of lockdown, if you're in Sydney, I send my love to you, and you'll get through this just like we did. And if you're overseas, please let me know how things are going. So all my love to everybody, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.